On air, it says. Yeah, it says on air. We'll see if I've been talking this entire time. We don't know. Anyways, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining DGG Presents, our damn good game stream. We are going to be diving into Hexing Tide. You can see on your screen there, it is a minimalist, monstrous role-playing game. And we are joined, Don and I are joined by Peach,
Heck
playing
yeah.
with us
Welcome,
today.
welcome. I hope you have a great time.
We're looking for more people to kind of join us and play test some of these to get some more different views and opinions.
Absolutely.
So Peach, give us a quick little bit about who you are and what you do and your socials for them all.
Well, I hope you can all hear me perfectly because I am Peach. You can find me on Twitter at Peach_writings, and I do mostly writing and content creation for TTRPGs and D&D. I focus a lot on bringing my culture forward and bringing something different to the TTRPG world. Doing a lot of world building right now. You can see me posting a bit about the worlds I'm gonna build towards various one shots in both D&D and Crash Bandas and all the other amazing games that I'm gonna keep on trying, just like today Hexen Tide. So yeah, you can find my Ko-fi in there, in my Twitter, and
Yeah, so
awesome,
you can
me.
see the above each of our camera prompts. You can see names as well as it'll switch between socials and other sites. And feel free to put any of that information, Will and Peach, you want to into the chat as well. You know, links for that they can follow. So go for that.
Awesome.
Now, on to Will, who has created this game. Tell them who you are and where to find you.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. Will Phillips, your friendly neighborhood elder millennial who is on the struggle bus.
Same.
100% tonight with the live stream. It's happening. Look at me, all my Gen Z friends. It's happening. Ignore the gray in the beard. We're going down. So, yeah, I am the creator, designer, writer, play tester in chief, so on and so forth, of Hexing Tide. It's a game of minimalist, monstrous role-playing, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Looking forward to going through character creation tonight. Feel free to give me a holler on Twitter, at Will Phillips. You see, I got super creative with my naming, basically in every space possible. I'm here on Twitch as Tabletop Will Phillips, giving me the razzle dazzle. And if you're interested in checking out the rules, the simplest, easiest thing to do is just hit up hexingtide.com. That'll take you to my gaming blog, which, get ready for some creativity, everybody. The URL for that is tabletop.willphillips.org. So, super zany. But hit up hexingtide.com. That'll give you links out to everything going on with the game right now, to the downloads on itch.io, to the Facebook player community, and to, if I do say so myself, a very lovely curated mood board on Pinterest. So check it out, follow along. There's also links to the signups for playtesting. Would love to hang out with you and run through the games with you and get your opinion.
Yeah, I think we lost Peach temporarily. So
hopefully they'll come back in pretty soon here. All right, so Will, give us the quick rundown. What is Hexing Tide?
That's a great question. Hexing Tide, that was a little bit more snarky than I intended. That was really as earnest as can be. I've been in a lot of business calls today, and so that's my default, right? Like, oh, great question. So, business professionalism, 100% here with your pal, Will Phillips. Hexing Tide comes out of my longtime love affair with monsters, is what it boils down to. So things like the large work of Mike Mignola with Hellboy and the broader Mignola-verse. Jan Brereton's Nocturnals is another criminally underrated and an underknown spooky monster-themed comic book series, graphic novel series. But also wider-ranging kind of influences, things like the Underworld movies in all their cheeseball glory, the many different iterations of the World of Darkness, the Chronicles of Darkness, all the different game lines in between there. Things like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, even more recently Doom Patrol, if you've been watching that on HBO Max, is I think another game that would work totally well using Hexing Tide as a rule base. Peach, welcome back, my friend.
I am back.
Yeah.
Venezuela.
It's happening. Okay. Venezuelan internet. It's a thing. But so all these monster influences, and that's where the monstrous role playing name gets started, is that it's really not necessarily built in as a horror role playing kit.
Yeah, I got you.
It's about weird monster creatures, and there's multiple ways those genres and those stories play out. Like it could be very much the Mike Mignola inspired, like pulp, influenced spooky action adventure, which is typically how I run things. But it could be, total edgelord soap opera if you want to go that route. But it also, you could really pull on the pathos and really make it about the struggles of non-human protagonists.
Oh, that's really cool.
Right? Am I cool enough to run those sort of games on a regular? No, I'm not. But it can be done.
I feel that. I feel that
Yeah,
deep in my bones.
Appreciate that, Dom. Appreciate it. I'm in good company. So that's the inspiration, and the rules as they've manifested themselves simply boil down to, as an almost 40-year-old grognard who has a professional commitments and other hobbies outside of tabletop role playing, I just don't have the brain power or availability to run heavily crunchy games anymore. Is
Same.
the full story and the end. And so that's how this is manifested. This started out as a 12-page super microzine sort of game. If anybody was around to check out the first public playtest before it really has kind of fleshed itself out. But right now it's a 32-page, half-page, half-size, traditional US zine size game, including, covers and end pages. And that'll probably be getting fleshed out to maybe in the mid-40s.
Nice.
But it's simply a matter of I want something that is going to be streamlined, is going to have rules that are really tightly focused on that theme of monster protagonists, and can tell those stories that doesn't concern itself with a lot of extra set dressing or mechanics that aren't part of that core theme. And then also tries to use as much of the mechanics that are built into characters to also then reflect the world at large. And in that sense, I think I have a large debt to pay to Fate Core and the Fate Fractal, or the bronze rule of Fate, right? That anything in the world can be represented as the mechanics that are what compose your character. And that was a real eye opener when I stumbled into that years ago. So those are the two pillars of the game, really, like weird monster stories, and then telling those stories in a rules-light framework that focuses in on that theme.
Very cool.
Right. One of the other things I noticed is I think you are planning another round of play testing in January. Is that correct?
Yeah, the kind of fun news. So 2022 has been kind of like the year of like really trying to get the ball rolling with Hexing Tide and figure out my own brain space on how the game is working, and released the second public play test back in July, and have been pretty diligently testing it for the past 4 months at this point. Mostly in person, but I've also been collecting feedback from other GMs who have, surprised me in the most delightful ways, with random emails or Discord or Facebook messages being like, "Hey dude, I ran your game and it looked cool, but here's what we found." I'm like, "Oh, this is great, man. Yeah, tell me all the other weird edge cases that I didn't consider."
Yep.
So we're at a point now where I am working, with the sleeves rolled all the way up to get the third playtest out. That ideally, keep your fingers crossed, everybody, is going to be launching in December. And so we have a couple opportunities for playtests with other GMs that I'm setting up, so we can get some blind play testing in there, and it won't just be everybody looking at Will for how the rules should go, but I can kind of watch and see how people interpret things.
We should totally run one of those.
Oh, dude, if you guys want to, let's make it happen. Let's make it happen for sure. Record it. It'll be fun. But the fun thing about what we're seeing here tonight and next week in the rules, this is version 2.5 of the second playtest, and version 3 is really going to be a minorly additive expansion to the rules, because I feel like the core framework is working pretty well. Like, really the need is in large part to add on explanatory text and examples of play, and that's the real challenge with these minimalist size rules is well, it's minimal, and I'm trying to keep that page count down. But if people are confused because, like we were talking about before the stream started, it's not built off an SRD. This isn't a hack of an existing system.
Mhm.
This is a brand new rule set built from the ground up. And when you're offering that to people to say, hey, do you want to tell cool monster stories in a way that isn't going to require tons and tons of dice and tons of bookkeeping? Well, here you go. It's a bit of an ask to do that without any examples for folks. And that's what I've heard from GMs. Right? I'm a jerk, but I'm not that much of a jerk.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
I
definitely one of the
getcha.
things is when you leave it open ended, that leaves a lot of room for creativity and making your own thing. But you got to give some examples somewhere in there for the people that aren't as used to that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If you go from structured play to open play, it can be paralyzing sometimes. You're like, what do I do?
I can do everything, and I don't know what to choose.
Yeah, and the nice thing about these rules is that it's very much has a mechanical framework. I wouldn't say it's procedure heavy in the ways of games like Trophy and Trophy Gold, Trophy Dark, or the Loom system, I think is what they call that, which I freaking love the daylights out of. But it's not that super procedure. Do X as a group and then you do Y. It is a little bit more traditional in that approach, but the mechanics of play, what we're going to run into later tonight when we get into game, like there are two versions of dice checks you make, period, full stop. That's it. So it's a lot of kind of looking at your character and figuring out what kind of bonuses you want to apply in a setting. But it's all going to fundamentally boil down to, I'm rolling high or I'm rolling low. And that, I think, as I've seen at my playtest tables, as people kind of like start to grok that, they're like, oh, okay, cool. Like I get what's happening now. I can rock and roll.
All right, Don or Peach, you have any questions you want to ask?
Well, I was more gonna ask about the dice rolling, so yeah, I think that has been answered. I think it's probably more about how the play goes out because I wanted to see more. I focus a lot on the stories. I'm not a system maniac, much less of a genius.
I mean, that's the way to approach this.
So I was focusing on, like how would you build a world for this game? Like I know it's based on certain type of media, but considering that it's about folklore, you can take this to many cultures, hopefully easily. And I was thinking, how do you set the world? Like, how do you imagine it? Is it like something
Ooh.
modern? Can you set it to other times? Maybe it's in the playtest. I didn't get to read it completely, but
Congrats,
was my
Peach.
question,
You didn't
yes.
miss anything. You're totally fine. There's deliberately very minimal world building implied even in the rules because I wanted to leave that pretty much open. My sneaky nefarious plans in the future, once we get through the third play test and once everything gets to a point of like, this might be like publishable even if it's just purely digital on itch, is to then start to move forward into a couple of different setting splat books. Same zine sort of format. The setting we're starting in, or we'll be starting with, and I'll run everybody through that because it will be the setting we have tonight, is vaguely 1920s, 1930s in the United States in a fictional island off the coast of the Pacific Northwest. But the rules, because there's deliberately minimal world building built in, and I'm not even talking like Into the Odd or Electric Bastion land that has a lot of world building. It's just opaque and disseminated throughout the text. Like it's not even that. It's very setting neutral, with one exception that I'll speak to in a moment. Is that you can put this into a couple of different settings. And one of my pie in the sky dreams is to connect with other world builders and GMs and publishers to say, hey, like I'm writing this, vaguely 1920s, 1930s pulp sort of setting, and going to be putting some of the rules around that context. But you could totally run a sci-fi weirdo future alien game. You could run a spooky Wild West Deadlands sort of thing. Like Deadlands would work pretty well with this, I think, as a setting.
That's cool.
And you could, the area where I'm not sure if it would be perfect though is a traditional high fantasy setting. If everybody's used to centaurs and turtles running around, then it's really hard to tell a story about, how people are interacting with their weird, monstrous nature if everybody's, freak of the week, right?
Yeah.
But could it work in a sword and sorcery setting? Even divorcing the weird monster piece of this, of just the barbaric nature of an outsider coming into a city or coming into a setting, kind of classic Conan style, right? That could be an example of how that would play out.
Yeah.
That might be probably more appropriate once I get this wrapped up and published and we have an SRD and people can start hacking it. I was talking to one of our GMs who's going to be running some play tests, and he's like, "Man, now I'm like really wondering how I could run superheroes out of this." And I was like, "Dude, superhero RPGs are a nightmare and a puzzle that I have thought through and am incredibly too daunted by. So you want to figure that out, buddy, go for it." But yeah, Peach, what we'll be playing in tonight to stop rambling here is vaguely 1920s, 1930s. The setting is not in the rules. This is stuff I'm bringing to the table with my players, and the only bit of world building in the rules, to answer the last bit of your question, is there is a built-in magic system, very narrative, but a magic system / elemental system / Pokemon / Magic the Gathering color wheel. Put that all together, combined with Games Workshop Warhammer Chaos physics.
Yep, the warp.
In the form of the warp, exactly, the warp and chaos gods being a manifestation of the Gestalt human consciousness, and that's what this built-in system of the hemoi are, which is a Greek term. The bodily humors, if you're familiar with that history, is kind of a riff on that to apply magical archetypes and powers and to give a little bit of mechanical distinction to characters in ways that, because this is a super minimalist game, it's nice to have a little bit of something additional to kind of frame how your character is different from another character who has a +3 power, a +1 power, an 8-point portent, and 2 packs, right? Like, narratively there's difference, but mechanically, if those characters are built the same, there's not. So this is a way to add that in there, and that can be flavored in a lot of different ways. The way we'll see it manifest in the game tonight is any source of magic, any source of folklore, weirdness in the world. It all maps to one of these 5 hemoi. That is what your character manifests as, and all the PCs will be aligned with one of these.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a great question, Peach. I was like, you're asking that question, and I don't think I even hit it. I think I was oh yeah,
that's a big question.
Excited.
The way you have this set up, it would be easy.
And yeah, hemoi. I thought it was pronounced chimoi, and I was like, "What's chimoi?"
Like, on one hand, I'm like, "Oh, this is this cool old ancient Greek term." I mean, it's a modern Greek term too. Like, it's just the word juice. Modern Greeks, right? So it's like, oh, great. But the idea of the system of humors is like, that's really cool. But the word is rough, especially at least for the Americans, and for our friends in Latin America, like that might be rough too. Like, blame the Greeks, but term I'm using right now, at least. We'll see if it changes, but.
Yeah, that was a great question. Like, looking at it, there's just so many scenarios you could just dump the system into and play. And like one of our people in the chat there asked about like a Witcher style setting, and I think this would work really well there.
Yeah, shout out to my girlfriend if she's watching, because she freaking loves The Witcher. But I think it could work. And here's the deal: you can frame your Witcher schools being tied to one of the 5 hemoi, because in the books, in the games. I still haven't really watched the Netflix show, so shame on me. But, the Witcher are viewed very much as other, right?
Yep.
And half of the story is the Witchers and Geralt and the others navigating that tension between doing these jobs, taking out monsters, and sometimes they're sentient monsters, and how they deal with that and the alchemy that goes into that. That hell yeah, I think if someone wanted to make a Witcher hack like world splat book for Hexing Tide, I think that would totally work.
Oh
Absolutely.
yeah, for sure.
And I think something else interesting too, especially leading to Peach's question, would be, you know, like having this set into different cultures, because the different monstrous creatures that would come out from
Yeah.
different cultures, I think would be really interesting and really fun, because, you know, every culture has.
Actually, yeah, it is what you'll see with
Aha!
my character. 100%.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited now.
Very, very cool.
It is what I want to do. That is why I really like the concept of Hexentide, because something that is really important to me is that indigenous tribes, and especially within Latin America, in this case Mesoamerica, you know, Venezuela, Colombia, similar indigenous communities, a big part of what we transmit to the popular culture of our countries is the legends, is the mythical creatures. So being able to transform that into playable characters that can be the protagonist of the stories, because in a lot of systems like D&D, Pathfinder, mostly if you want to transmit something like that, it's gonna be as the enemy, you know, or as a monster that's similar. But being able to play that character, portray the part of your culture that you love, I think it's awesome. So that's 100% what I'm gonna do today.
I love it. Yeah, and thinking of my experience here in the U.S., I don't look at, especially with the beard, but I'm Osage or Washaje, and our cultures. Thinking of your example, Peach, of a way to embody old stories and legends into a lived culture, you know, vis-a-vis role-playing games, right, as a way to continue those stories is pretty cool in ways that at least, you know, up with us Osage, like we're now kind of getting into this era of reclaiming our language, creating an alphabet, like modernizing. Like there wasn't an Osage word for cell phone. And a lot of the, you know, first language speakers, you know, they're all gone. So it's how do we preserve that, and how do we preserve and continue our culture using the tools that are available to us in the 21st century. And so now that's got wheels going in my head. Like, oh man, like the Osage role-playing game, right? Like yeah, that's pretty cool.
Well, like no pressure on you here, Peach, but this might be something. Maybe you said you love running You said you love running games, so maybe when that next playtest comes out, you know, you can run a game down there and give all those examples to Will, and just have, you know, I think that'd be really awesome, just seeing all of that from a different culture and what's brought out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, just on principle, like native indigenous communities of the Americas, like perpetuating our culture, like that's a freaking cool idea.
Okay. Any other questions before we get moving? I mean, we really took one here and went on with it, but it was awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah,
100%
worth it.
Okay, if more questions might come up, but I think we're gonna be okay, yeah, you got it. All right, I was just reading over that. You answered it. Cool.
Yeah. So just for context, that is one of my favorite neighborhood trolls, Alan of Darkdale. But a roach, that is the not just common to the Osages, but a lot of native communities, Pacific, and not the Pacific Northwest, but the Northeast, through Mid-America. But the Osages had their hair roach, so basically a mohawk is the way to think about it, right?
Wow.
So yeah, they shave off everything but all that. So
really, really cool.
Yeah, weird random history tidbits. We are crossing into Peach and Will talking about their native indigenous culture.
Hey, that's awesome.
Hey, no complaints here.
I'm always happy to learn more. I am always happy.
The awful thing is, I couldn't have my hair cut into a roach, even if I wanted to anymore. It's just, it'd be really awkward.
Oh, okay. So I think we're gonna go ahead and get into our character creation now. So kind of like we've got. Well, I don't know about Dawn, but I know Peach has an idea, and I kind of have an idea. Even though I'm tempted to switch that to more Witcher theme now, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna stick with the last one I had because I fleshed that one out the most. But how would what's the best way to start? You and I talked about this one-on-one, but just kind of for everybody else, what's the best way to start here?
Let me pull up the screen here, and I can just jump in. The best way to start, Peach. I'm sorry. What?
I said explosions.
Explosions? Yes. Yeah, that is hands down the best way to start. Really.
Well,
let me zoom in here. So the best way to think about character creation in Hexing Tide, Peach really hit the nail on the head. That this is a game that is deliberately built to stymie the ideas of heavy hardcore min-maxing. Because the core mechanical, the dice checks are very, very by design double-sided, double-edged. They, you can't just be like, I want to have really big dice sizes and then, expect to steamroll everything because that'll catch up with you. Similarly, the status effects in the game are very deliberately double-sided. So don't worry about how can I make the most badass fighter or the most effective trap-destroying rogue, right? Think about character concepts. And in that context, like we've been talking about, this is a game about monster heroes. And so even if you are being a more baseline human being, that's not the route you want to go. There needs to be something about your character concept that is not fully human or not fully normal. And if you want to be a human, then tell us what's odd or weird about that person. So, for example, I've got a player in my game that has unexplicable, unexplained, we'll get to it in the story eventually, but mysterious ability to teleport. And oftentimes it goes really weird and wrong, right? And so it's like, well, that's phasing in and out like that. But you also have classic examples of, the Hellboy example that we keep referencing, right? So think primarily about your character concept. And that'll be, definitely the place you want to start out with. From there, what I would recommend, and there are 2 or 3 different ways you can kind of in order of operation. It's not like D20 games where you roll or pay for your 6 attributes at first, and then select a class and race combo, and then everything kind of derives from there. This is a classless system. It's a point buy, right? So there are 2 ways that I would start after I have like a general idea in mind. One of those is looking at your 3 perils, which are the 3 dice that you're going to use for every roll in the game.
Okay.
And instead of strictly describing and quantifying a character's physical and mental abilities of strength, dexterity, intelligence, charisma, like that, or even, a reflex save or fortitude save. What it does is it looks at your character's background and their current circumstances, and looks at how their environment and their upbringing has shaped their ability to interact with the world across 3 important categories for the genre. And here we have an example of how those are listed in the rules. And if you have a copy of the rules yourself that you're working through, it is on page, I'm going to say 10. Boom, page 10. And so the 3 perils are going to be questions of danger. So how much danger has your character been exposed to in their life, and how, again, this is not modeling reality. This is modeling the genre and the stories we're trying to tell here. And so a character that's been exposed to a lot of danger might be able to react quickly, might be able to face trouble, might be more physically capable in certain situations. But it also means that it's going to be really hard for them to calm down, to cool down. They're going to be susceptible to staying in fights and exposing themselves to trouble and danger when probably they shouldn't. And we'll talk about kind of how the dice sizes map to these 3 perils here in just a sec. Your second type of peril is the question of hardship, another great kind of like monster theme, right? And this is a lack of physical resources growing up. And the result is the more you lack, the worse off you are. In these stories, the more creative you got to be, the more resourceful you got to be. And so bigger dice are going to represent more kind of quick thinking, more creativity, more resourcefulness. But then the flip side of that is you're not going to be able to rely on physical goods a whole lot. You're going to be stuck in situations where if you need to kind of go with the flow, it's going to be tricky to do that. And then the third question is isolation. An example of that really is mapping broadly to intelligence, but specific kind of academic intelligence, also social skills in a broad setting. And the idea of if your monstrous character has grown up very isolated, either physically or just in worldview, has a very alien nature or alien worldview, then they're higher on isolation from the rest of humanity. And the story we tell with that peril is that the more isolated you are, the more you're able to watch and observe and perceive and interpret human interactions and kind of see what's happening in the world. But that means that your interactions with baseline humanity are going to be weird and disturbing because you are very obviously not normal, not a baseline kind of perspective, right?
Yep.
So how that's going to work as you're thinking through your character concepts, and we'll just start here tonight. Again, knowing that this doesn't map to reality, it's all about the stories we're telling, is that, as I was saying earlier, this is all double-edged. This is the first example of how this game is not rewarding min-maxing easily. Can it be done? Hell yeah, of course it can. There are number crunchers out there that I'm sure can figure out the most effective emergent combination of peril dice sizes and the powers, portents, and pacts that come from them. But basically, how this is going to work is you're going to have these 3 perils. You're going to choose one of 4 dice sizes. This isn't going to cost you points. You don't have to buy into it. You don't have to roll for it. You just choose what, in your view of your character concept. Large dice, so picking a D10 or a D12, typically you're going to be stronger and more effective when you're trying to rely on that peril to do something. But that means it's going to be harder for you to resist the complications in your life when those same perils get tested. The inverse is then also true. If you choose a D6 or a D8, it's going to be easier to kind of keep your portents and the complexities of the world at bay from, erupting and making your character's life complex, destroying it entirely, depending on what happens in the narrative. But that means, you're going to be less capable in those specific settings. So to take danger as the most easily mappable example, if you want to be a combat monster, sure, choose that D12, and you're going to be more accurate, more effective. But that also means that you're going to be glass cannoning yourself in a lot of ways when you have to resist dangers as they're trying to hit you in that way. So I would say start thinking there. And then once you kind of have those basic ideas put together, like let's start to workshop it. You all should have links to the character keeper.
Maybe.
And so do I need to, I can share that link again.
Oh, I think I have it. I
have it.
It's one of the ones I put in the Discord for you, Don, and for me.
Okay.
So for the dice we're choosing for these, can you choose the same die?
Yeah, you sell me on if you want to choose like all D10s, right? Like sell me a story on why you want to do that, because that's just, this is the metagaming side of it, is it's not the most fun ever to just roll one dice type the whole game, right? Like if you give me a sales pitch, I'm the sort of GM that I will probably be like, oh yeah, that's totally fine. But I want to be sold first.
I was just asking to see if there was a rule or a limit or anything on that, because I don't want to do that.
Yeah, no, that's how I have the text underneath this table here, right? Of the most interesting characters will not have all matching die sizes, and nor are they going to be all high or all low. You want typically a variety of die sizes because that'll be more fun at the table. But like I said, if you view your character as like at the max, weird, troubled upbringing, super non-human perspective, or isolated from humanity, like I could probably, like, if you said, oh, I'm going to riff off of Frankenstein's monster, and you know what, like, high danger environment, so D10 or even a D12, super hardship, so D12, and super isolated from humanity, so another D12, I'd probably be like, yeah, sure, okay, yeah, I'll do it, right?
Okay.
All right.
And Peach, if you're working from your phone to get to the Google Character Keeper, we're totally happy to jot down that information in the spreadsheet if that's simpler, because I know Google Sheets is not the most friendly thing on a mobile phone.
That's so true.
That is very true.
Okay, that sounds better for me.
Yeah, we got you.
100%.
All right. So I do think I have a concept, but I'm still trying to figure out some details.
Okay. Well, if you guys, I can
Yeah.
go ahead and explain the concept that I
Yeah,
had.
go for it.
Yeah.
That's where we're gonna start. Okay, so here's my character concept. I don't know if I should do it like in character. I should just introduce what it is about.
I
There's
think
three things to my
at
character.
this point, we don't have to worry too much about being in character. So I think we're fine just kind of metagaming and talking about as players to one another.
Awesome. Because I really have no clue how I'm gonna do them, but yeah, let's go ahead. So my character is called El Hachero. The people call him El Hachero, but his real name is just Carlos. Very boring name on purpose. Because what's the deal with my little Carlos? You see, many years ago, it was a Semana Santa, well, a very important week where people don't work. And he was supposed to just go out into his lumberjack work in Los Montes de Lara, in the mountain parts of a certain Venezuelan state. And he was hunted down by some exotic animal hunters within the mountain range. Ever since then, he really doesn't know why. He's gained the supernatural powers that have kept him alive all through the many, many years that he is now considered some sort of a ghost, or so to speak. So El Hachero de Lara is this very big, tall person, very strong looking, that has a lot of moss and plants growing from his back, arms, with a very big, heavy, rusty axe, and dogs. In this case, mucuchillas, which is a Venezuelan breed of dog that's very pretty. You can search it up if you want to. Anyone? Los mucuchillas. I'm gonna write it in chat so people know how to search for it.
yeah, please do. And please write down
Yes.
how I spell that name.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna make a mess of it.
It's written El Hachero, which you can also call them Carlos. And he's a very chill person, and through the years, in his isolation within the mountain range of Lara, he's gotten to meet many of the animals, and he now dedicates most of his time to hunting down poachers, basically, hunters of the exotic and endemic animals that live within all of Nueva Esparta and Portuguesa. So, how does that go? Well, he has had the opportunity to meet most of Venezuelan myths and magical creatures. So, in order to make some money, anytime there's some sort of magical investigator, anyone who wants to write a little book or travel within what's the mystic and enforcers of this country, they hire them. They make sure they know where they are. They guide them through the woods and various parts of Venezuela. Yes, it's like a lumberjack.
Oh, okay.
Basically, that's what El Hachero means. It's more like the Axeman, but the direct translation would be like lumberjack, someone who cuts down wood. Aunque Even though lumberjack in Spanish is leñador, no hachero. But basically, the job of this person was being a lumberjack. And they managed to guide people who have inquiries with the mystic through their country to earn some money. His pastimes are carpentry, and he's just kind of looking to get out of there, you know? He has his little friend called El Churui, which is a little owl, and he's looking for something new to do because it's been a lot of years since he's done anything in his life other than hunting poachers. They're kind of bored. So yeah, that's my character concept. It's a very chill person, but that has been definitely hunted, and they can be very social, even though most people within the surrounding areas of Lara fear him terribly and get away immediately.
Like it.
I think I do need the link for the sheets
Yeah.
because I'm in a different document. I'm not in the same one you're in.
You're in the slide. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's in the shared Twitter chat.
Right
If you
here.
want to look there.
I will
I
drop
looked and
that
I didn't see it.
into the group chat here. Let me know if that link works for everybody.
Okay.
So I have an idea, but I have no idea about stats yet.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, let's talk. I love talking on concept, right? Like that's
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
really where the fun stuff is.
So my dude was originally a scientist who was looking for ways to prolong human life, and during a failed experiment, an explosion happened, and his body and his essence or soul are permanently divided, but his body is effectively a dumb, slow zombie, and his ghost is permanently tied to it, trying to steer it around.
I love
Oh my god, I love that.
That's pretty damn cool.
You know, I wish I had gone first now.
So yeah, like from all outward appearances, he looks like mostly a dumb zombie who gets weird inspirations of cogency. As like the ghost is 10 feet away looking at the body, like, come on. We used to have a PhD in chemistry. The least you could do is no, as it falls in a hole and is trying to
Ooh, I like this. Yeah, super cool. I think the idea definitely works.
I'm not sure on stats on that one. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing is that there's because it's very rules light. There's a lot of different ways you could build out any given character archetype, right? Depending on narratively what you wanted to focus on and what you felt was important about the character.
Yeah.
So we can definitely get into the weeds on that. I think thinking about concepts and then applying them to your peril dice is probably going to be a great place to start. And then we'll get into real open-ended complexity on the other end of that.
Gotcha.
Oh man. Okay. Well, Winston was just, minding their own business, kind of exploring the world, and came upon a gathering of some of these monstrous creatures, and it ended up being a kind of a fight between two different groups. Easiest way to describe it would be one was kind of like a group of vampires, and another one was kind of like a group of fey creatures. The fey creatures were kind of trying to defend some of the humans that lived nearby, whereas the vampires, obviously were looking for a meal. So having stumbled into this event, he ended up getting coated and ingesting not only vampire blood, but also this fey blood. And those obviously had an effect on him and changed him. So he has the enhanced abilities, like he's stronger, he's faster of, a vampire typically would have, and he doesn't age anymore.
Okay.
But well, he does. It's a very slow aging. And there's that hunger for blood, which he does not want to indulge because the thought kind of like sickens him a little bit, because he doesn't want to have to ingest human blood, because he still sees himself as human, even though he no longer is. There's telltale signs where the ears are a little pointed now. There's the fangs that you can see, and there's just weird random effects, like the skin changes and looks different, which is coming from like a more fairy fae side. So sometimes it's like a little bit glittery, and there's almost like a change to it, but it doesn't look like, it's not normal, so it kind of sets people off around him. But he has this want now to make sure he protects people, since he knows he's different from these other monsters, and uses the enhanced strength and speed from the vampire part of him, with also a little bit of fairy magic that he doesn't really understand. But it kind of like, in instances when something needs to happen, sometimes he can be at a different spot, or something changes direction, as a little bit of fairy luck, as you might call it. Sometimes there is a sparkle. Yes, that is part of this. That is part of the skin change.
Part of the vibe.
That's part of the fairy skin change. So sometimes it's a sparkle, sometimes it's a lighter pale skin, sometimes it's a darker one, sometimes it's a color, sometimes it's.
I like it very much. A character at war with himself, split between the life that they were leading, and now this encounter has happened, and now what am I? Who am I? Well, at least I'm not a ghost driving a zombie body. Yeah. I got that going for me, but things are not all roses.
And I figured, like, as they take more stress or damage or pain or some sort, that's when they just maybe lose control at a certain point. And maybe if there's a source of human blood around, they might not be able to help themselves.
Yeah.
What about some fermented human blood?
I mean, who knows?
Aged to perfection.
Aged to perfection.
Is it aged to perfection like rot gut, or is it aged to perfection like fine wine? I think that's
probably
aged in two different ways, like sour milk, or
probably closer to grape jam.
Not like it. Okay, so I love all those concepts. I think those are going to give us really great foundations to work from as we flesh out the mechanics side of the characters. But to start out with, thinking of those concepts, let's look at our three perils.
Gotcha.
Their backgrounds and their current life, how that is impacting them in the idea of danger, of hardship, and isolation. And again, when you are looking at your dice sizes, think of them here on page 11. So D6 is going to be minor or occasional, a life that's been little troubled by danger, hardship, or isolation. And then it goes all the way up from there, where a D12 is supernatural or overwhelming influence of one of those three perils. There's no escape, there's no reprieve from it or its imprint. And then D8 and D10 sit a little bit in between there.
Okie doke.
And I am fighting with the sheet to make things fit in the spot.
Oh, it'll fit the moment you hit enter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it'll expand, and then it should just truncate everything.
Yeah, it'll word wrap for you, man.
Yeah. And just for the purposes of tonight, like, don't worry about feeling like you have to get a full novel or anything written down there. Like, really whatever is helpful for you to remember your concept.
Gotcha.
And if you don't need to write down anything, then that's also an approach as well.
So
Okay.
Hmm.
So correct me if I'm going in the wrong direction here, but I think the danger part probably going with a 10 on that one.
Sure.
Just because he's got the increased. There's definitely a struggle fight against that savage nature that in stressful situations can be lost. So
yeah.
And then being the thing is, like, he likes to stay around humans still. He sees himself as one of them, so he doesn't isolate unless he knows he's like in a situation that might make him lean that way. So the isolation probably be the 8.
Okay.
Let's see.
Okay.
And then he actually was pretty well off since he was traveling. So hardship is only going to be a 6.
Yeah. We're seeing a 10, an 8, and a 6.
In my case, I put it down a little 6 on hardship as well, because even though they live in the forest right now, they've worked pretty well with people guiding them through the forest and various mythological places of Venezuela. And even though he's traveling to a new place in search for something different, they know their way around how to make money and find resources. In isolation, I put it down at D10 because it's, even though he cannot directly speak to animals, it is what he's most comfortable with. Through the years, their main job is killing poachers, And so they've gotten to understand animals completely, and in that sense, even though they know a lot of the mythological creatures in Venezuela, they're not only going to a completely new, different place, they have no clue how will people react, because back home, well, they really didn't like him.
Right.
I'm almost thinking for. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no problem. In danger, I put down an 8 because they're certainly a person more so confused to their supernatural powers more than someone who's reactive. But poachers in Venezuela are pretty freaking active, so they have to fight a lot. And they have managed to still survive, so I thought I like a good midpoint between still strong but not too dangerous. So
I
a
like it.
D8.
Cool. All right, Don. What was thinking for Gerald?
I was thinking Gerald's probably the primary peril is probably hardship because of the total frustration and disconnect of trying to steer his poor hapless undead self around.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about going with a 10 on that one. The other two I'm not entirely sure with yet. I'm still going back and forth on them.
And we can circle back to that. Like you don't. Again, it's not like D20 systems where you make your choice and there's a lot of stuff that comes from that choice.
Yeah.
So I'd say just noodle on that, and we can start to move on to the other aspects of the character creation and can go from there. So what we'll do now is start to move into what is the blank slate nature of character creation. So characters are most strongly built on 3 pillars, and that is the 3 Ps. Even though perils is a P, so really it's 4 Ps. I can count everybody. It's exciting. The 4 Ps, in which we are going to talk about 3 of them. So you have powers, you have portents and pacts. are the 3 open-ended descriptors by which you are going to spend experience points to buy. And if you are using the character keeper on Google Sheets, it will auto-calculate as you start to put stuff in, which is hopefully going to be helpful, or else we can walk through the math ourselves. But these 3 different things, and we can talk about them, I've found just addressing them as a group and then starting to noodle through kind of how you feel your character is built is probably the easiest way rather than going category by category. So those 3 powers are exactly kind of what you think of: your abilities, your trainings, your inherent physical or mental skills, but also could be even more broadly, because this is very minimalistic and narrative in approach. You could absolutely call out as a power another NPC, sidekick, whoever, an organization even. Also equipment, vehicles, and home bases, housing, secret layers are all valid options for powers. And
Gotcha.
how powers are going to work is mechanically they are bonuses. So when I tell you to make a powers check based on whatever you're telling me you want to do, so either danger, hardship, or isolation, what you'll do is add the bonus 1 to 4 to that check. And so +1 kind of represents, I mean, you can intuit what the 1 to 4 means, but like +1 is like skilled ability or experience, and +4 is like really significant powers and abilities. The other thing to think when you are statting out your character in this way is that powers come in one of 2 categories, one of 2 types. Standard is a power that is easily accessible at all times, that your character isn't going to have any issues drawing on or accessing. Or you're going to have niche powers. And niche powers are those that have one of 2 qualities to them. Either one, in the fiction, it is harder to access or less universally applicable. Not applicable, that's the second one, but less universally accessible. So, for example, if you had a vehicle as one of your powers, or even an NPC as one of your powers, that vehicle or that individual are not always, liable to always be around. If we were going in a mine shaft, for example, and you had an auto gyro as one of your powers, like one of the pre-gens has, as cool as it would be to make it happen, you're not going to fly an auto gyro down a mine shaft, right? So that's an example of a niche power. Secondly, the second example of niche powers are those that just, from a metagamey standpoint as a player, are just not going to be as universally applicable as something like super strength or super intelligence, or fade luck, if you wanted to make power, right? Like we're going to put some boundaries on that. But I'm really fade luck. I'm lucky. Yeah, like that's not a niche power at all, right? So that's ways to think about it, and so those are in the game just as a balancing part of the rules, because it's not the most fun to have this really great idea for a power that you don't get to use a lot, right? So niche powers are cheaper is what it boils down to. And we're starting out with 15 experience points. So niche powers is 1-to-1 cost for XP, but standard powers are double. So a +2 normal standard power will cost 4 experience points. And when you set your bonus, that'll then auto-calculate in the XP totals. So that's how powers work. Do you have questions about how to think of powers? I'm happy to answer those now, and if not, we'll move on to what portents are. Okay, yeah, powers are pretty straightforward, to be totally honest. Portents is kind of an interesting way the monster theme is reflected in the rules, and really kind of the primary way you will interact with the monster theme. because in Hexing Tide, we are not concerned with hit points. We're not concerned with saving throws. We're not concerned with defenses or modeling reality in the sense of, oh no, this bad guy has a gun and I just got shot. How many hit points do I lose? I don't care. We're not interested in that question at all. What we are interested in, though, are those strange and unique looming risks and dangers that come along with your monstrous nature. And that is really what the health equivalent or the hit points equivalent in the game becomes. And that's what is going to, become a problem that you're going to have to manage. And so examples of that, when you think of werewolves, right? Like the bestial fury or the losing your sentience and self-awareness in a wolf form is a great example of a portent. We're not so much worried about that from a full moon standpoint in these rules, but as something that your character could be lost to, and then the chaos and devastation that happens when your portent maxes out. Other examples, deviant or inhuman urges. So if we're really riffing on the vampire side of thing, the thirst for human blood, or old, moldy blood grape jelly is, a great example of that, right? But side effects or unintended consequences, like could totally be an example portent that your character just kind of loses control and chaos follows in their wake, right? I'm reminded of a novel, epic fantasy novel series called the Malazan Book of the Fallen, where one of the characters, this almost immortal character throughout history, has been put to sleep for extended centuries. If I remember right, it's been years since I've read it. But that's because their anger was so catastrophic they would destroy entire civilizations before their anger was sated. That's not the power level we're going for here, but as an example of a portent, right? But it also could just be ongoing risks or dangers. Even the example I have written here in the rules, page 15, Jeff, could be really relevant for Gerald, is a deteriorating zombie body. Totally legit example, right? Or it could just be your character is hunted or pursued by, third parties, right? Your portents don't have a type or category because we're going to be, fixated on them all the time. The way the XP works for that is it's a 2-for-1 deal or 1-for-2 deal. One XP point will buy you 2 points of a portent. And so you need to start at character creation, start at 4, and you can max out at 8. Once your characters kind of get going in a campaign setting, you can totally buy just a 2-point portent. You can go max it up to 10 or 12. That's fine, but just for character creation, or 6 or 8. And Jeff, I like what you're doing. You can totally have multiple portents. Totally applicable and totally good. Does anybody have questions about that conceptually?
So basically as the game wears on, you get a score in your portents for different things that happen, and once it hits that max score, then it's that portent is unleashed in a way.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So portents start at 0. It's the opposite of hit points that tick down. This ticks up, and that's because when you're making a portents check, again, this is where the double-edged nature of your peril dice size comes into play, is with a powers check, when you're trying to proactively accomplish something, you're rolling that dice and you're looking for a high score. In this, you're looking for low. And as your portents get tested, or you tap into them to supercharge your abilities, you add points.
Got you.
Yep. So it'll be harder and harder to roll low as the game goes on. And so it's like, oh goodness, I can't. All of a sudden, it's vanished from my brain. So if anybody watching in the live stream can tell me, it's a Powered by the Apocalypse game about weird monster weirdo teenagers in high school, and it's a similar mechanic. you give in to your darkest self, your darkest nature, and chaos breaks out. It's I will remember the name of the game after the stream immediately, but I can't remember
Yep.
it now. But it's that similar concept that you're describing, Jeff, that
Okay.
when your portent maxes out, all hell breaks loose. Any other questions on portents as a concept?
No, seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I didn't understand very well the part of how do you like write the numbers down.
Yeah, so you can start out choosing 4, 6, or 8, and it's 1 experience point. 1 point
Okay.
will give you 2 points of a portent. So a 4 will a portent of max 4 will cost you 2 experience points, but max 6 will cost you 3, and max 8 will cost you 4.
Okay.
So I'll go on to describe packs for everybody, and then we can just, start working out our characters, those 3 categories. So packs, again, highlighting the theme that these are monstrous creatures from folklore, not normal humans, who have this inherent, strange, different nature. Packs represent those ties back to the mundane, mortal world, where and why you are not just a total savage who is turning into the monster that's preying on humanity. So pacts can represent a number of things in the narrative. It could be relationships. It could be trafficking on rumor and reputation that you've built up around yourself. If the superhero game example from earlier that a GM's thinking about, Batman as the Dark Knight, what's the criminals are a cowardly and superstitious lot. Like that would be a great pact in a superhero version of Hexingtide, right? And it's a great example of rumor and reputation as one. But affiliations and networks, what sort of organizations your character might be a part of that's meaningful to them, memories and history, memorabilia and artifacts, or even hobbies, pastimes, and jobs. And so that's, an interesting example of where, depending on how you want to focus narratively on the character, might shape what you choose as a pact versus what you choose as a power. For example, in a game I ran last week, I had a mobster who was killed and was returned to life as I think Ghost Dad with Bill Cosby back in right? Was, still in the world, right? But incorporeal. But one of his packs was the trench knife that he brought back from the war that was meaningful to him. And so he wasn't going to get a bonus attacking with the trench knife, but in moments of great peril and trouble, like that was a humanizing, thing that tied him back to his old life and to the people in his life. Like powers, though, pacts also are either niche or they're just normal, standard, widely used. And the distinction there is the same distinctions we were making with powers. And so, if it's a memory, if it's a bit of history, if it's a piece of memorabilia or something you keep on your character at all times, then that's something that's going to be a standard, easy to access, easy to use. And those will cost you 2 experience points. But packs that are not always accessible, that are going to take a little bit of narrative work to get to or to access, those are definitely niche. And so those are cheaper to buy for your character. So things to consider as you're spending points there. The only other thing to call out as you're building your characters is you have to have one of each. You can't just be without any of these 3 categories. You have to choose at least one for all of them. And you can have 5 max for your character throughout the character's history. And those can change and evolve and grow, but it's unlikely you're going to start out with more than 5 unless you get really creative with how you're spending your XP, which cool, go for it. That'd be cool to see. But
bunch of niche powers.
Yeah, a bunch of niche powers, a bunch of niche mutants, like niche packs, and Yeah, that might be an interesting exercise. But most of the time, from what I've seen from everybody and how I have the pre-gens built out, people have a couple options in each. But depending on how you want to build out your character, that gets a little bit, I think, into the strategy, character optimization stuff that I'm not too worried about tonight, just for our 2-hour window of character building.
Ooh. Vroom vroom. Yep.
Street
Okay.
time.
All right.
Yep. Life happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Yes.
So, Peach, would it be helpful if we jotted down your ideas, since you're working off the mobile phone, on this Google sheet? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
I have
So,
some
cool.
already.
Where do
Yeah.
you want to start?
So let's go ahead. Okay, so for my powers, I have the concepts, but I'm still
Sure.
figuring out
Sure.
the numbers of it. But I
Okay.
have 3 ideas of powers, you know? The first one is an object, which would be my trusty old axe. That is a very big, lumberjack axe that, as well, just like me, has a lot of plants growing on it, and it seems completely rusty and blunt. But for some supernatural reason, it is as sharp as a razor blade. I do my carpentry with it. I cut anything that I need to cut with that axe, and it never goes unsharpened. It never loses the edge.
I like it.
So that would be my first
Okay.
power. After that, I have my mukuchies, which are my dogs, which, even though they're not always at my side, that is because they're spiritual in nature, just like me.
Oh,
So they are always with me, just maybe not physically. My mukuchies are always ready for a hunt. They're always ready for also just playing and being little dogs. Well, big dogs. But I can summon them and talk to them and be with them whenever I so desire. And my last power would be, which I think might be a niche power. It's a kind of a. I would think this would be the one with the higher stat, which is calling El Silbón. El Silbón, or the Whistler, is a very famous myth here in Venezuela, and I think other parts of uh, Latin America, where is this very tall, lanky person with a bag of bones and a big machete, and they can basically teleport. If you hear their whistle from far away, they're close to you. And if you hear it close, far away. And we're very good friends. I have traveled to their land very much, so whenever I need help, I might just call El Silbón. Kind of like the boogeyman.
I like it.
I love it.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the axe, the ducks definitely sound like more regularly accessible sort of things, so probably standards. And then summoning the Whistler, probably more niche, but we can hash out the numbers as we go along.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Do I keep on going, or should we?
Yeah,
each
sure.
one of us,
Well,
like,
yeah.
the
At
power,
at this point, we'll just kind of
forces?
focus on single characters. I think is probably the
Mhm.
most efficient.
Okay, perfect. For my portents, I didn't really know how to manage it. A big part of my character is that they don't know why they keep surviving. They've been shot at, they've been hunted, but somehow they still
Okay.
survive. They have very wood-like skin. So the portent that I thought of is stations of the world. Because one thing is that in Lara, in Venezuela, where they live, it's freaking tropical, man. He has no problem with plants whatsoever. They grow. They even grow flowers in certain parts of the year. He's completely well taken care of with his wood skin and his plants. But whenever he travels, he realizes the rest of the world is not so much like that. Winter comes, his leaves fall off, he starts feeling sick. He doesn't know what's going on because he's so used to this tropical ambient that is always up and bringing for the plants. But whenever they go out into islands and other stuff, oof, completely falls down. So I think that would be like a midport and like a good
Okay.
6.
So let's talk about how that would be
So,
tested during the game, and how that would become more of a problem over the course of gameplay. Is it
mhm.
that his woody plant body starts to break down, or he becomes more like a plant and is immobile for a while, or
I think it would be more, when you people in America try to take care of like a monstera plant or something and it just dies? Yeah, his skin becomes dry, the leaves start to like fall down. They need to take like a whole bunch of water because they don't know why is this place, what is wrong with the humidity here. It would
okay,
be
so
something
we'll
more like
say
that.
a wilting plant-like body. Is that probably a
Hmm.
fair description? Okay, so we're sitting at 6.
Yes,
Okay,
I would agree with that.
cool. Okay, cool. I like it. Any other portents you're thinking about, or is that the main one we want to go with today?
I think
Okay,
I'm gonna go with that one, and I'll have to think about that one more because I'm not
and you
completely
don't have
sure
to have
yet.
multiples, right? You just have to have one of each category. So that's totally great.
Okay,
Okay, and now
yeah.
looking at his pacts, what are you thinking?
Okay, the pact. So first and foremost, the most important one is to the animals within the mountain range and any mountain in the world. It is what they protect the most. It is what has kept them alive through the years, being in contact with the nature and animals of this place, the mountain specifically. And well, for that matter, they do the same with any other animal or little creature that they see in
Sure.
danger.
Okay,
So
I like
yeah,
it. I like
nature
it.
fact, important one.
Cool. Okay.
And I think as of like professions, I think more organizations, one of the reasons they get to travel is because they work with supernatural investigators all the time. So in his facts, it would be the social aspect of knowing both mythological creatures of Venezuela, which is why he can call the Whistler del Silbón, and mythological
Okay.
investigators. I think that would be one of his facts. And
I like it.
that's pretty much it.
Okay. So right now, without putting any points into your powers, just to read off what we've got on the character keeper here. Do you want to say that your pacts are niche or standard? Because I can see an argument being made for both of those as either, depending on how easily accessible you want.
Yeah.
The
I
mythological
think the
investigators.
first one is definitely standard.
Okay.
Yeah. The first one is standard because nature is all around. Nature is anywhere where you are in the world. And the second one I would think is
Okay.
niche. Because first of all, they're not gonna be in
Sure.
Venezuela.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. So it'd have to be
So
find a way to reach back to those folks to use that. Okay. Cool. Okay.
yeah.
So looking at your portents and packs, you've spent 6 XP total. So that means between your 3 powers,
Okay.
you've got 9 experience points to spend on that to get up to 15 total, because that's what we start with. Um,
Okay.
And
so
2 to
of the
1 and 1 to 1, right?
yeah, that's right. So niche powers are 1 to 1. So a +1 is just 1 experience point. Standard power is 1 to 2. So your +1 power would cost you 2 experience points.
Hmm. And I have
So
15
you've got 9
to
to
spend.
spend.
Oh yeah, 9 exactly. I have 3 powers.
So
This is
Yep.
yeah,
this
so
is
I'll let you
complicated.
think about that, and then we'll move on to Jeff and Don's characters as you do
Yeah.
the math there. So, Jeff, Don, either one of you want to volunteer
Super
yourselves at this point?
Yeah, we'll just go down the list. I'm up there next. I think I got
Okay.
everything settled out here.
Cool. Walk me through it.
All right, so for the powers, there's the Fey Magic, which I put as a niche power because he doesn't really understand it and doesn't always know how to access it.
Ooh, okay.
So it's kind of like that Fey luck I was talking about, but it doesn't just always come into play. It's something he does, but it's like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. He's still learning about how to be able to use that side of what's going on. And then
So let's put some guardrails and parameters a little bit on what you can do with that Fey magic, because this is such an open-ended game. We want to make sure that we have a common understanding of what the limits more or less are. Not that we need to like hard back into anything, but just what does that entail when we say Fey magic?
It was kind of like along the lines of that Fey luck I was thinking about. So the biggest thing probably would be just subtle, almost a displace, like a minor teleportation, not going like across the room even, but maybe if something's gonna hit him, instead he's like 2 inches or 6 inches to the left, and so it misses.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a great starting point. Also, I think as we get into the game, I'd encourage you also to think of proactive ways that you could also use your character's Fey magic as well. So it's not just reactive or defensive in nature, just given how the defense works in this game. But yeah, okay, cool.
Well, I was also thinking on that one, being able to use it kind of as a way to kind of change their appearance slightly.
Okay.
And that's why sometimes the skin changes. It's not in their control that it does. That's when they're not in control of it. But when they can harness control, sometimes that's how they use it to pass, to be able to be among the humans and not stand out as a monster when they have control over it.
Okay. Yeah. In fact, I kind of like that, because those give us 2 very different uses of that power, right? And again, that's another one of the good faith negotiation bits of open-ended rule sets like this, right? Is clear boundaries between powers. As an example, I've got a character who's a werewolf in my ongoing, real life friends at my kitchen table game, and it's easy to be like, well, I'm +2 werewolf, and I can just do everything and anything I want with my +2 werewolf power, right? Like, that's pushing it, right? So segmenting things out a little bit is part of the negotiation of powers in this game, right? So I think I like the idea of Fey magic as a shape change. Is it illusion, or is it actual? You said kind of your skin actually does shift. Is it an actual physical?
I think that one's actually. Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, is it all fairy glamour?
I think so, and that's why it's harder to control and tap into, because it's not a physical thing. It is more of an illusion, and he doesn't know exactly how to grab that all the time.
Okay, so what if we frame that as Fey illusion glamours or something like that?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I'll let you frame that and phrase it however you want. But cool, Fey magic, super streak. Wow, that's not even what you wrote at all. Super streak. Yeah. Lightning bolts for everybody. Super strength and speed. Now that I can
Yeah.
talk correctly. Yep,
And
I like it. Definitely standard. That's something you
Yeah.
use a lot of. Like,
and then the secret lair is just where he lives. Nobody else knows about. He's got some resources there, so he's got some a library to try and study what's happened to him. He's got access to some technological advances as needed. Like we're not talking Batman level.
sure. But
We're
odds and
talking-
ends.
Yeah, we're talking more
Okay.
maybe Green Arrow light level.
Fair. Yeah, fair. Yeah. Batman that's like definitely a +3.
Yeah.
Like, sort of thing.
Like
for
like
sure,
like
right? The Batman.
like Green Arrow, like initial Green Arrow, maybe starting off with like supplies, just like some odds and ends that can be useful.
Okay.
And just a place to retreat if they need to try and control when the bloodlust gets too much.
Cool. I like it. Cool. All right, walk me through your portents and your packs.
Okay. So the portents, the bloodlust is just that craving for human blood from the vampire side. It's just tries to fight it back, but it's there as much as they try to resist it.
Yep.
And as part of the not understanding the Fey powers and everything, there's a little bit of Fey chaos that can be unleashed when they try too much to tap into that power and are unsuccessful with it.
Sure. I like it. Cool. And tell us about this gemstone necklace.
The gemstone necklace is kind of essentially it's a grounding stone, but in a necklace form. So like when they start to feel that bloodlust come on, or they're feeling like that chaos build up from that Fey energy, it gives them a grounding thing, hopefully, to try and hold against that. It's an item that they hold dear, that was a kind of a family heirloom, but they have since outlived their family at this point now.
Oh, interesting. So this wasn't a recent encounter with this vampire clan and the Fae and all this stuff. This was a some time ago thing.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. I like it.
They spent time wondering and then realized, okay, I need to find a way to control this, and that time has gathered in the resources for that lair. And
Sure. Cool. I like it. Excellent. Woo. All right, Don, tell us about Gerald. Or Gerald, the Geralds multiple? Is this
The Gerald. What did I put that somewhere? Nope. Okay. Yeah. So the first one on the powers I did was Undead Fortitude. Basically, it doesn't really have any functional vital organs or the need to breathe, or it's more along the lines of he's dead. So I mean,
yeah. What can you do? Yeah.
And
I love it. Yep.
but yeah, the second one I did was Lucid Possession, and for like a single, it drains them, but for a very, very, very small amount of time, the ghost can possess the zombie and have full faculties for a very short period of time, but it just drains him to the point to where he's like almost unable to direct the zombie after the fact for quite some time. I was just
Sure.
thinking about this massive, like, it's one of those like ripcord moments. And the unnatural strength thing is kind of in the same vein, but not quite as strong. Basically, if Gerald focuses really hard, he can try to get the zombie to do a task that's slightly better than normal, but not much.
Fair. Yeah.
Oh,
It's like, come on, man, you can do it. I believe in you.
Just lift up the rock. Come on. Lift up the rock.
No,
Open the door. No,
it's a door. The handle.
Use your thumbs. You still have a thumb. Use it.
pull. It's a pull door. It's a pull door.
See, the thing is most of these are extremely limited to very, very basic actions. He's not going to be doing anything
He's not going to be making a macrame plant holder.
Nope.
His, unnatural
It's
strength of roots of
rudimentary
That-
at best.
That is difficult to do. I have done that before. Like me and
Yeah.
my partner we get these like date boxes sometimes, and one of them was making a macrame pot holder for like a plant.
Why?
And
Yeah.
I will tell you, like I got
That's-
frustrated.
That's not a date. That's a fight waiting to happen.
Like she likes macrame now, and she does it periodically, and I got through it, but I was like,
Mm-mm.
oh, this is not my thing.
That's like me trying to crochet. No thanks.
Cool. Okay, now walk us through your portents.
All right, so the portents I have are brains, obviously. And so
I mean, yeah, that's a winner right
Gerald
there.
is
Yeah.
constantly trying to direct the zombie to do the right thing, but as
Mhm.
the desire for brains, in order to keep the undead thing moving builds up, it just will eventually go for it,
Sure.
regardless of who it might be, unfortunately. And then you have deteriorating zombie body because it's undead.
I like it, and I also like with this how both of your portents are focused on the zombie body, and so your ghost is a ghost. It's what can you do to me? Like
he's-
I'm a ghost.
Yep,
Yeah.
he's
Yep.
desperately trying to just not be an embarrassment.
I like it.
And then his pact is a wedding ring. Because before this all happened, he was married and had a family, but he's afraid to even go near them now. But
Sure.
it still reminds him of what he used to be.
So here's what I think on that wedding band. Given the nature of the Geralds,
I love
that
it.
that wedding band is physically attached to zombie Gerald, right?
Yeah.
So that's something I can muck around with if I need to. So here's what I think. I would either say that's probably a niche pact, and that would give you an XP back to spend someplace else, or we can frame it more as family memories and fear of hurting them, and thinking about what you once had. Would definitely be a standard pact. Like that's something that you couldn't easily get rid of.
Yeah,
You
that's
tell me
true.
how you'd want to frame that. What's more narratively resonant with this character concept? Is it the
Oh, making it a
item of
niche
the
pact.
ring?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So where do you want to spend that extra point?
That's a good point.
It is a good point. One good point.
Maybe increase the deteriorating body to 1.
Okay.
That
Cool.
way it's just a little bit tougher to kind of reinforce that zombie fortitude.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, and I think I love having brains as just 4 because that's very
Absolutely.
dramatic. I like it. I like it. Okay, cool. So Peach, let's circle back to your powers. Have you had a chance to kind of think through the numbers on that with how you want to spend
Yes.
your 9 points?
Yes. I have them figured out. So the Whistler is going to be a good 3.
Okay.
So there you go, 3 experience points. Then my axe is going to be a +2. And the Mokuchiyas, they like to play around, they're little dogs. I used to use them for hunting, but we've become friends through the years, so it's just a +1. I'm not going to use them for...
Scouting and
Well,
yeah,
I might have to use them for something that's
Okay.
but
I like it.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's really cool.
Sweet. Well, we are almost done with character
Yeah.
creation. So good news. We might actually get a 10-minute window of gameplay here,
Or at least an intro.
or at least an intro. Right? I'd love to be able to run through at least a round of roles and stuff just to kind of introduce everybody to the basic, and then we can kind of probably cut it at that point. So here's the last thing we need to figure out for your characters. As we were talking about in kind of the first part of the stream tonight, that there is very minimal world building built into the rules as is, but where that manifests itself is in that system of magical, spiritual, elemental systems stuff called the Hemoi. So all of your characters are going to be aligned to one of the 5 different Hemoi. And so that's going to be on page 18. We have the examples here. And basically, they speak to your larger character's temperament and just concept. So think of that as we get through the examples. But mechanically, how your Hemos will affect your character choice is in 3 different ways. One, each Hemos is strong against 2 of the others. And so that means when you make a power check against something that you're strong against, you'll be extra effective. You do an extra point of damage. And that's a lot in a game here where every attack normally is just 1 attack, 1 success, 1 hit. It's not, you're not rolling for extra damage or anything like that in this version of the rules. So you have strengths against other Hemoi. And then as well, you are also weak against 2 other Hemoi. And so when you make a portents check and you're trying to keep your portent from escalating, if you fail that as a consequence of one of these Hemoi that you're weak against, instead of that portent going up by 1 point, it'll go up by 2.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of a flavor choice. The last mechanical effect of choosing a Hemos is passion immunity, and passions are the status effects in this game. And so instead of like being worried about like kind of classic D20 status effects like blinded, right, or fallen or grappled, right, like we're not super worried about that in these sort of stories. But like, you know, the mental level of the mental anguish and weirdness that these characters are going through, like that's part of the story we want to tell for sure. And so there are 6 of them that will affect your die rolls. And so each Hemos is completely invulnerable or unaffected. They're definitely double-edged. So you can think of them as both being unaffected, cannot benefit from, but then also is invulnerable, cannot, you know, suffer from one of these 6 passions. Those passions are all listed in the back half of the book. So let me find that for you if you want to take a look on page 24 if you want an example of how that works. But your choice of Hemos will affect that as well. So let's take a look at what your options are. There are 5. They're the traditional 4 humors of blood, phlegm, ichor, and black bile, plus a 5th called rot. And those are all on page 19.
All right.
And so again, think of them really like all of the supernatural, magical, folklore, weirdness in the world, all of it, all the various traditions and different shapes and forms, all manifests in one of these varieties. And so I'd also say just because you're a vampire, like in the context of this, doesn't mean you are blood. Right? There are many different ways to play the vampire angle. I would say that typically in previous games, super duper supernatural, like full on non-human characters, rather than characters who were or are human and just have had something happen, those are typically going to be rot, because rot represents inhumanity, chaos, madness, like the influence of the non-human in the world. But I wouldn't say that any of our characters here really are locked into that, because you all started as humans and have had these encounters, experiences, and changes. So really, I think it's up to you all to tell me what you think matches your character concept the most.
I think my character concept is very much phlegm.
I like it. Cool.
Yeah.
So the blood does fit, not just because of the vampire thing, but just the energy, excitement, charisma. They are, when they are able to walk amongst humans without being seen as something else, they are a very likable, very talkative person, high energy, and very excitable when they're in the midst of things.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I'm actually going. I'm thinking of going with Iker because like Gerald himself is really frustrated and trying to just control the whole situation, and his need to want to control like even his fate when he was alive is what led him down this path.
Ooh, yeah.
So he has, and that's kind of like his own personal form of hell, is he's stuck barely being able to control this guy. And so,
ooh, yeah, I think that definitely fits.
Yeah.
Nice.
Ooh.
Okay, everybody. I think we have gotten through character creation. We've selected our peril dice. We've spent 15 XP between our powers, our portents, and our pacts.
Yep.
And we've selected a hemos for our character. And then everything else kind of auto-fills. Everybody feel good about their character options, at least for the starting part right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. All right, so we've got roughly 15 minutes left. So I think if we can get through just an example round of a scene, just to kind of get people the barest bones intro to how the roles typically work, we can do that. And then we can kind of set the stage for next week. Does that sound fair?
Oh yeah,
sounds good to me.
Like I said, if it goes a little over the 15, don't stress.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, the 2 hours is just kind of, it's more of a guideline or something.
More of a guideline, right? Excellent.
Makes sense.
All right, let's see.
So let's set the stage. And this will be part of the character conversation that we can get into next week in light of trying to just get into the action and rolling some dice here before we call it a night. But your characters are all located now in the fictional piece of land called the Ghoul Islands territory off the coast of the Pacific Northwest, and specifically are based out of the city of Broome Harbor. It's a 100-mile stretch of conifer-covered hills emerging from the fog of the North Pacific. It's remote and it's isolated, and it has seen a host of people travel in over the years. I won't give you all my giant lore dump, though, I promise. But heaven help you if you were my normal players, because I annoy them all the time with lore. For the purposes of tonight,
I love lore, so.
But the interesting thing about being so isolated is that historically no one has worried much about the Ghoul Islands or Broome Harbor. And as a result, left to its own devices, the city of Broome Harbor has grown up to become quite a cosmopolitan, but also shady and nefarious location here in the vague 1920s, 1930s. The city's really thrived on the industries of fishing and timber, but then civilization has come, but then also a lot of vice has come along with it. But other things thrive here in Broome Harbor and up and down the Ghoul Islands as well. It's almost as if they've been drawn to the islands themselves, like they're a lodestone for the strange and the macabre. And that includes all three of you. You're a creature from folklore, a supernatural being, visitors from the stars, monsters, or maybe mortal humans who are burdened by strange powers. So the three of you live amongst humanity, strange sights, and stranger worlds. And in the world's shadowy margins, you face the vile, the villainous, the unnatural, and the dark impulses of your own monstrous nature. But Broome Harbor goes on, merry and drunk, dark and dangerous, and happy to ignore the strange and the odd at the margins. And connecting all those odd margins like sinewy tendrils is the Pines and Dimes Supper Club. On the surface, it's a established fine dining establishment. Rumors say it's a speakeasy, but you know that it's so much more. And this is the kind of central locus for the characters. It's not much of a concern necessarily for our one shot, but that's the point of contact all three of you will have, and we can establish that next week. But knowing that the Pines and Dimes acts as the central hub around which all of the strange, the weird, and the monstrous turns around Broome Harbor and up and down the Great Ghoul Island. And the three of you are somehow interconnected with the Pines and Dimes, and we can use that as our RP prompt for next week. So think on that. But know that today, what has brought you now to a crossroads uphill up the countryside. It's roughly this time of year. It's the harvest time. The harvest is being brought in. And there were rumors of odd things happening in the woods up island. And so the proprietor of the Pines and Dimes has gathered the three of you and have tasked you to get to the bottom of what's happened, because the concerning thing is that two other, you could call them agents, you could call them employees, you could call them do-gooders or malefactors, but two other non-humans, in fact, they're both fawns, like the classic Greek fawns with pointy ears and hooves and horns atop their head. Drawn to revelry in the celebration of the harvest being brought in and the start of the timber season, went up island to the crossroads, country crossroads of a no-name little settlement, a hamlet. They were sent there on Thursday night. It's now Saturday midday. No, I'm sorry, it's Sunday midday. Nothing's been heard from these folks at all. And it's been several days. The phone line to the establishment at this roadhouse known as Oleg's Roadhouse, phone line's been cut. Nobody's heard from them. And so the three of you have been dispatched to get to the bottom of things. And at this crossroads, and the way the game works is instead of worrying about hard movement rate or worrying about interacting with anything from a measurement standpoint, it goes really hard out on the far end of being very narrative. And so there are different focal points or zones. And so in the context here for us today, there are three focal points to worry about. There's the exterior kind of setting of the roadhouse itself, and on the back end of this roadhouse, kind of built onto the building is, you know, the proprietors. There's a term for it, but you know, where the shopkeeper would live attached to the building, right? Whatever technical term I'm looking for there. But there's the roadhouse and that environment. Then on the bottom left, there's the interior of the roadhouse that's going to be an area to look around in. And then off across to the other side of the road, on this crossroads, is this rotting, almost falling down old Orthodox church, because the Ghoul Islands up in the Pacific Northwest were settled after the Tishomet people, who are a fictional adaptation of Pacific Northwest native communities. But fictional as the island is fictional, it's all made up. But this little nod to history was settled. The first kind of Euro settlement was by Russian fur traders back in the 1700s. And so that has kind of stayed. So that's, you know, where you get this ancient Orthodox church. But as the three of you are starting to pull up on this crossroads. Sorry, I'm trying to juggle my screens here really quick.
100% understand.
Yeah, right. That is a challenge.
Magic.
So, total magic. So let me copy and paste this here. Still getting my Google Slides to play nice. All right. So also the way this works is that there is very much a popcorn scene structure. We'll kind of get this set up, and then we'll figure out kind of who's the first to act. But then I'll also add the turns and stuff here. So I'm just going to put in Carlos for right now, if that's all right, Peach. And Jeff, remind me what your character's name is.
Winston.
And so how this will work, because things might get a little squirrely in just a moment.
Come on, Gerald, you can make it. All you have to do is turn. Come on. No,
so
it's
actually,
a
this
bird.
is a question. If the three of you have, been told, hey, go take a look at this. The Pines and Dimes Supper Club is on, is fully aware of everyone's like inhuman nature. Did Zombie Gerald get stuffed in a car with the rest of the group? Did Zombie Gerald get loaded on the back of a truck and kind of get brought up here? How did that go?
I think the back of the truck would make sense.
There's like
or
this.
If it's a car, he's strapped to the roof or something.
I was thinking, you know those like really old folded up fabric deck chairs, like one of those are bungeed in the back of a truck bed, and they just like cover him with a black plastic bag so he just kind of doesn't wander off too far. Kind of like a parrot,
Right. Not too bad. So as the group approaches, the deep fog of the thick woods and this crossroads opens up. You know that there are some small farms nearby, but nothing you can see from the road as the forests have been allowed to grow over and near atop, encroaching on the road over the years. That you see a young boy, no more than 10 or 11, throw himself out in front of the car or the truck or whatever, motorized bicycle, whatever the group's using to get up there. Shrieking. Crying out, waving his hands, trying to get your attention. And behind him, you see the movement of what looks to be some sort of strange, almost overgrown vine of some sort. And like a snake almost in its movements. And it comes piercing at the boy, who dodges out of the way just at the last minute, throwing himself into this dirt road, kicking up a cloud of dirt right as your car comes upon this scene. And this is no strangely weak, easily broken vine. This is a large chunk of wood with a sharp, piercing tip that drives itself into the ground, though. And for just a moment, this large maneuvering vine there in the middle of the crossroads is stuck and working on pulling itself up. And the boy looks out and reaches out his hand to the three of you as you pull up and says, "Please help, help." And with that said, we're just going to jump right into some chaos breaking loose immediately.
My favorite.
As you all approach, let me see if I can not mangle up my Google Slides here. So how this will play out is the three different focal points or the zones. You can travel between those, no problem. You've got an individual danger right now of this vine, which I will also call out here in the list on the side that we can use.
Gotcha.
A malicious vine. But then you also have a larger danger in this sense. And in these rules, dangers can represent both physical enemies to fight and to deal with. It could represent environmental dangers or blocks or traps or whatever that you have to overcome. It can also represent investigative challenges. It can represent social settings, right? And in that sense, every danger has a pool of hit points that you're going to have to make effort against. If you're familiar with Index Card RPG, how he has that idea of effort being applied to all sorts of stuff and not just attacking enemies, it's a similar sort of concept. And as you all approach, you are hit with the heavy sensation because a chemos will manifest itself through your senses, and that's how you all understand what you're interacting with as chemos aligned and weird non-human creatures as well. It will tell you like, oh, this is this specific vampire clan or whatever weird plant monster thing it is, but you'll know that it's one of the 5 categories of chemos. And so you feel it as you're getting close, and you might have not picked up on it as your eyes all focused in on this boy and this giant malicious vine thing trying to impale and spear him. But as the car comes to a stop and you all ready yourselves for whatever your actions will be, you feel that colors at the edges of your periphery, the periphery of your vision, start to grow bright and intense and shake and shimmer. And you recognize that manifesting as the Hemoia black bile, which is present all across this scene. So Hemoia can attach to an entire scene. It can attach to specific kind of focal points, particular dangers, or even specific attacks of dangers. But for right now, just the whole environment of this crossroads area is saturated with a sense of black bile. And then you also have, it feels like there's another presence also trying to push back against that black bile. And you immediately kind of feel almost like a turbulent sense in the air as these two mystical forces somehow are pushing against one another.
Oh, okay.
So not only in this scene do you have to figure out, well, where the hell is everybody, and have to deal with this malicious vine attacking the boy. There is a larger portent that you can also tap into if you need to, that we are calling strange magics kept at bay. And so when it comes time to start to make portent checks, then if you want to, you can absolutely ping that one instead of one of your character's own portents as we get going.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yep. And so similarly, you'll also will see powers and hacks also show up in scenes as well, and you can interact with them in exactly the same way.
Gotcha.
But for right now, we have the portent. And I'm going to add in, also in advance for next week or right now, if you have character art you want me to use as tokens, like we totally can, just let me know. But for right now, I'll just use these circles. And so we have the group kind of all coming up on this scene here outside of the roadhouse at the crossroads. This giant malicious vine which stretches back and around the corner. You don't know where it comes from yet from your vantage point. Has gotten itself stuck in the dirt. The boy is crying out for help. Who reacts first upon seeing that?
Winston will get out and try and
Okay.
get the boy covered or out of harm's way.
Okay.
I will definitely just, I'm muttering, I'm kind of cold, rubbing off, and I'll just say, Chaure, no joda, esto es americano, de verdad. And I'll just say, is the floppy guy still on the roof? I'll get out of the car.
I'm sure hoping the floppy guy is still on the roof.
Yep.
If our floppy guy is still on the roof, I'll help him out with my axe. I'll just cut the ropes and flop him down.
Gotta get going, Zombie Gerald. We gotta go.
Brains. No brains right now. We have a job to do. Come on. Come on. I believe in you. No,
So
that's a bird.
Is Zombie Gerald articulate? Like, can the body
Very, very slowly and very simply.
And is it the words of Gerald the Ghost, or is it its own thinking, speaking?
Some column A, some column B.
That's
It's kind of like a zombie that might have a bit of. It seems like it has a bit of identity issues.
fair.
Like
That's
it's
fair.
not. It's definitely. It seems like there's some fight for control there.
Fair. Okay, well, Winston, you responded first, so I'm going to give you the starting out point. You said you're going to bail out of the vehicle and try to pull the boy to safety.
Yeah.
What I will give you there, that's effectively dealing with a malicious vine, and so we will treat that as tackling the vine problem right now. So I'm going to jump into just really quick, knowing not everybody's had a chance to dive into the rules. So this is going to be our first example of a power check.
Sweet.
And when you are actively doing stuff, right?
Okay.
With these rules, because they're super minimalist, you're always looking for 6s. And on power checks, you want to get 6+. And if you are trying to do something particularly weird, complex, dangerous, then you might have to make multiple checks. Or you might have to make a portent check first and then your power check to affect whatever you're trying to do. Very much kind of in the vein of Powered by the Apocalypse sort of games where you're always looking for the same success numbers and you just might have to make multiple rolls if it's a weird thing you want to pull off. So in this case, tell me which peril dice you think makes the most sense if you're trying to get the boy moved out of danger. Is it more a trying to calm the kid down, be like, kid, it's cool, come with me, like it's fine? Or are you really trying to keep your eye on the vine and if it yanks itself back out of the ground and comes at you again? Because I think that will tell me if it's going to be a danger check or an isolation check.
Definitely keeping the eye on the vine, like I interposing myself between the vine and the kid, but also but like the first instinct would be to get the kid out of harm's way, even if that means physically moving them.
Sure. Okay, yeah, so I think that's definitely a danger check. So give me a danger roll with your danger die, and then is there a relevant power here, and I think there is, that would apply to you yanking a kid and hauling out of there.
The super speed, because I want to get him out of the way fast in case this vine pulls itself back out.
Yeah, definitely. I like it.
All right, so that is a D10 because my danger die is a D10.
Yep.
And then I rolled a 7, and then the power is a +3, so
nice.
Over the 6, and that's what we're going for, right?
That's over the 6. Very nice. Yep. I'm lo-fi myself and just keeping notes on paper here. So here's my question. Black bile infuses this scene. Your chemoi is blood. Interesting. Okay, so you're going to be weak, but that's how the rules go. Like you don't suffer if you're weak trying to act against something. It's only when you have to make a portent check influenced by it. But cool. So yeah, so you're able to get the boy moved out. With just a single sort of action, you can just kind of like get him out of immediate peril. I would want like another action or another, check to, get the kid brought along on board with being moved to one of the other focal points basically out of range and danger of the vine. But yeah, definitely that's enough to successfully mitigate the vine momentarily. And so I will just mark your turn tab here to red just to show that you've gone. And because this is popcorn style narratively, you tell me who makes the most sense for you to act next, who would have seen you jump in, grab the boy, move him out of danger. You can select one of the other PCs, or you can select the vine, the enemies. And it'll just go like that through the turn. And
well, I think Carlos probably has the most likely next action being from nature and also not having to try and control another body to do something.
Yeah, just assume Gerald's probably going to end up going last for the most.
Okay, so I go next now.
Yeah, so it's your turn. So you've got the threat of this giant, monstrous, moving like a snake vine, which the young boy has been moved out of the way, but it's starting to root itself back up out of the earth where it had impaled itself in the dirt road and is moving around. And it's almost like it's sentient or sees or notices not only the boy, but then also turns around to face the vehicle as it's come upon the crossroads. So that's the most immediate problem or threat facing the party. But then there's still the larger question of, well, where is everybody? Because as you now get a moment's notice, you see that, well, there's still vehicles, old farm trucks, sedans, but then even, there's a couple of buggies and wagons that the horses have wandered off to feed themselves. But the vehicles are still there, but there's nobody piling out of the roadhouse or nobody at all to be seen other than that boy. So those are both things that you can work on addressing or doing whatever else you want in this scene.
Yeah, I'll definitely see the nature thing that's going on. After flopping down my good friend Gerald, I'll just get up. I'll tell my little elf friend Chaure to vete, get out. And I'll walk up to this thing and I'll say, well, you seem to be quite crazy. Like, what's going on? What's your name?
Okay.
I'm just gonna stand in front of it and try to interact with it, see what's going on.
Okay. Yeah, so that definitely feels like an isolation sort of check. So give me a successful roll on that. And if you have any powers that would be relevant to trying to understand what you're seeing or being able to communicate with the vine.
I think for this one, no, it will be just a straight roll.
Okay, give me a roll.
That's my isolation is a D10, right?
Yep.
Yep.
I believe so.
Come on.
Yeah.
Nice.
8.
Yeah.
Very nice.
That's one.
So the snake-like shape of this massive, pointed, piercing vine pauses right in front. And you said earlier that you're very large. Like, how large and how big are you, and how big are the tree-like growth as well?
Ooh. We're talking, the tree-like growth is more so like very much Amazonian style. How do you say it in English?
Okay.
Climbing
Sure.
plants and like flowers, orchids, stuff like that. And I am pretty much like a draconic. It's like a good 250
Okay.
meters.
Yeah. So this thing kind of rears up then to look you in the eye. It doesn't have eyes. It doesn't have a mouth. And you almost hear from the distance. In fact, somebody give me a roll, just evens or odds. Evens is you'll hear a little bit more. Odds, or you can't make out where this noise come from. So somebody just give me a random roll.
Oh. Who wants to do it?
Oh, all right.
know.
You
Got
got
it.
your dice roller up.
Even.
Okay. So the thing pauses, and it's almost like you're mollifying it, if that's a word you're causing it to pause. And you hear something almost from like way back around on the other side, like some sort of something like very hoarse, but you can't recognize what is being said, but it sounds like the timing of it sounds like something being said in response. But in that moment, you feel that sense of a pulse of power kind of come washing over you of that black bile sense, and the colors at the edges of your periphery, specifically just yours, kind of flash brighter for a moment. But it rears back after that moment and, looks like it's preparing to strike again.
Okay.
So I think that's like a good solid.
I'll say after this is like, this is like
Yep.
the popcorn
Yeah,
part.
so you can choose Gerald or the Vine.
Okay. So after this, I'll definitely just say, "Hey, man, I'm just learning English. Okay, I don't know what the fuck are you saying. So give me a second here." And I'll say for this part, definitely, I would love to see what Gerald wants to do, but the vampire taking the kid away, and then me just trying to talk to this vine. I think it's the turn of.
Yeah, probably the Vine, right? Probably the Vine. And Gerald, you're out on the ground as well right now, right?
Mhm.
Or zombie Gerald is on the ground, right?
It's like the zombie slowly trying to reach for a bird. I'm like, no, over. Come on.
We got GG and ZG.
GG and ZG.
Ghost Gerald, Zombie Gerald.
Ghost Gerald, Zombie Gerald.
Ghost Gerald's just like, all right, come on, Gerald, we got this. Okay. Now,
so Ghost Gerald, you're probably watching as this plays out.
Yeah.
Then, because your zombified body is, on the ground and trying to get it to, be a helpful participant in whatever weird stuff you now gotten yourself involved with here in the country, this crossroads thing. And it was odd and weird that Chero, Peach, is your character known to the other player characters as Carlos or Hachero?
I would say definitely that they try to make a name for themselves in this place. They're looking for somewhere where they're not as weird. Mm-hmm. So they'll know him as Carlos. Yes, good old Carlos.
Okay.
No Hachero.
So Carlos is trying to calm this thing down and trying to speak to another plant weird thing, and sure as shit, it stops and whatever. There was some sort of response coming from the other side of the roadhouse, and all that dissipates in an instant, and it strikes again and attempts to impale, and not impale necessarily, but through ground and trip up both Carlos and Zombie Gerald. So what I'm going to want is to make a danger-based portent check for both of you as this thing strikes at you both, since you're both kind of right in line, kind of right there. Yeah. And it's if successful, it's going to try and trap you and writhe around. So fortunately, nobody has any portents that are have any points in them, but I want you to use your portents to describe how your portents are being, put at risk as you make this roll, but there are no points to add. So how a portent check works, to go back to our cheat sheet, is basically how your defense plays out in this game. And so your portent is being put at risk in these situations to avoid doom, mitigate chaos, to get out of danger, right? And so to do that, we're going to roll our peril dice again. And this is definitely a danger roll.
Okay.
And you're going to add whatever portent you're putting at risk. But like we said, everybody's at 0 right now, but you all tell me what portent you're risking here.
Oh, yeah. Zombie Gerald's deteriorating body. Like, definitely wear down its durability a bit.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And in my case, whenever I get attacked, it seems as almost the vines and plants that grow around me grow even more. New ones. They wrap around that part that's been damaged. But in this case, they're definitely not as strong. And very little sprouts grow, and they seem to be able to not protect me as much.
Yeah, I like it. So give me some rolls using your danger dice, 6 or below.
I got a 1.
Nice. Yeah, so the vine kind of strikes Carlos first as it passes through and might chip a little bit of the plant off from the plant growth in the flowers, but just the growth comes back almost quickly, and you find that your body is not damaged at all as a result.
I got a 5.
Nice. Also successful. Well done. So yeah, you tell me, Don, how does this fast striking snake vine thing trying to impale Carlos? It flies past Carlos, nicks off a bit off of his shoulder or his leg or something, and then makes its way for Zombie Gerald. How does Zombie Gerald react or mitigate?
I'd like to think that Ghost Gerald's like sitting there shouting like, "Move, stupid, move!" And the zombie just turns and looks at like the worst possible second, and it just like goes right through the midsection, but it's so fast that Zombie Gerald just kind of loses a few inches and drops down onto itself.
Well, I mean, actually, in this case, with the important checks, we're looking at 6 or below. You're trying to roll low.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can narrate that if you want, but if you want to say that you're just kind of carved up a little bit or nicked or whatever, that also works just fine.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean,
I like it.
Works for me.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So this vine just pushes through and it kind of withdraws back again, kind of like that striking serpent sort of look, and that's a great segue for Gerald for your turn.
Like, come on, Gerald. I believe in you. I need you to go over there, and I want you to hold it down. Give the vine a hug, Gerald. Come on, I believe in you. So he's gonna go try to like hold it down and pin it while they can try to figure out what to do.
Okay.
Because I know it doesn't really. Gerald doesn't really have a whole lot of tactile sense, so. It's a blunt instrument. The poor guy.
So here's going to be my question of how we play this.
Mm-hmm.
When I think of like, because I can make an argument for this action being all 3 perils, depending on how narratively we want to frame it. Quick thinking, creativity, like thoughtfulness, and guile is very much like a hardship sort of check, right? You could represent that with like trying to BS your way with your zombie body. The social influence, classic charisma stuff generally ends up being isolation. And is that kind of what we're trying to do of like, hey buddy, like it's you and me, we can do this. Or if it's just straight up like we're turning into a wrecking machine because we're a zombie body that doesn't feel pain, then that's clearly danger.
I don't think Gerald's trying to direct it to be dangerous, but I mean it is a zombie, so I don't know how well it's going to respond. But Gerald's trying his best to just try to like de-escalate the situation as much as possible.
Okay.
So, I'm not entirely sure.
I mean, if it's a just go trap it down and hold it down sort of thing, then I think that's probably going to be isolation is what I would probably frame that as.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Wheel and deal a little bit with a NPC other person in the sense of however we consider Zombie Gerald and Ghost Gerald. But give me an isolation check. Yeah, and since fundamentally it's even though it's an isolation check, it's is this this sounds like kind of an unnatural strength sort of effect of what you're trying to get done, though.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'll give you that plus one. Yeah. So give me a 6+.
I got a 5, so +1, right? So 6.
Yeah. So that's a 6,
Yay.
Right? Yeah.
I got
nice.
my D8. Rolling just a little bit around average. Yay.
So Gerald zombie Gerald, tell us what that looks like.
You see him
You've
go,
got to walk past.
"Hug."
You got to walk past Carlos to do this. So.
Yeah, he's just kind of ambling over that slight like shuddering stumble, and he grabs onto the vine and he's like, "Hug." And I'm like, "Yeah, Gerald, you could do it. I believe in you." And he just kind of like collapses and holds the vine down, kind of like a football player with a football, just.
Yeah, comes tumbling down. And your Hemos is Iker. Oh, yeah, and sure enough, in that moment, like you as well. Well, does Ghost Gerald have sensory perceptions coming from the zombie body at all? Or is it just totally you're a third party observing this?
It's kind of like a third person thing.
Okay. Yeah, so as zombie Gerald kind of tumbles onto the vine and kind of takes it in its arms and kind of dumps it onto the ground and goes to the ground with it. All three of you, the boy really doesn't count because you aren't picking any sort of Hemos kind of radiating off of him. But the three of you there feel another flash of that black bile energy zoom out from right when that vine gets tumped to the ground, and that sense of like your colors on the periphery of your vision flash again. And so you're not only do you get a success, but you do another point of damage to the vine. And in tumping over it, that's enough to the vine hits the ground and almost immediately desiccates. It doesn't, totally turn to dust or anything, but like life withers away from it, and it stops moving entirely.
And Gerald's like, "No, friend."
So as the vine kind of desiccates, that ends up being a nice end of the turn. And what I would like to do is introduce one of the rules that we're going to be bringing into the third playtest here next month, and circle back to the boy. This will be our stopping point for tonight. So this big vine, tried to impale the kid and then tried to impale two of you. Winston, in your quasi-vampiric fey nature, moving way faster than any normal human could, scoops up the boy and runs, to one edge or the other of the crossroads, and setting him down. And this kid looks at you, Winston, with a "what in the world is happening" look. And so what I'm going to want you to do, this is the introduction to the rules, because where I haven't had rules written has been about how these very monstrous characters, interact with mundane, normal, baseline humans who aren't exposed to the world of weird monster stuff, right? The rules have been very focused on the character's internal struggle in that area, but not the external world, which has been very hand-wavy so far. So this is trying to address that very lightweight in the rules. So, Winston, you're the closest to this action. I'm going to need you to make an isolation portent check. Or power check, I'm sorry.
Oh, power, I was like...
Yeah, but it's neither really. I've yet to figure out how to describe this, but just roll your isolation die, because you used your super speed with the kid, and the kid saw it and was a participatory in the super speed. Add that super speed power to that, and
so I'm going for 6 or above.
Just tell me what you get.
Okay. Wow. On the floor. On the ground. Let's get that up here. That is a 4 plus 3 then, so 7.
Oh, sweet.
Oh no.
So here's my question for you. Winston, given his peculiar vampiric fey nature at this time, when he interacts with the world of mundane, normal humans who, don't have a tie to the system of Hemoi, aren't exposed to the world of the weird, are you more likely to engender kind of fear and disgust and frightening people, one, or two, do you engender feelings of just cognitive dissonance, this is weird and I'm just shutting it out and shutting down entirely? Or three, do you engender feelings of intense curiosity, fascination, wonder, or awe?
Ooh. Well, it's definitely not the first one.
Okay.
I think the curiosity and awe, because his interactions usually, like, a very charismatic person likes to go talk and interact with people,
Okay.
and usually tries, like I said, tries to, like, when he figures out how to use the glamour to make himself look fairly normal, does that.
Okay.
But he was not prepared in this instance. This was just out of nowhere, so he's just
Sure.
definitely looking monstrous at the moment.
We'll call this Boy's Wonder. And you ended up rolling an 8 total?
7 total.
7. Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
that's not insignificant. So how this works is your first interactions with normal humans are going to result in creating a new scene portent that is going to get tested every round. Unlike other portents where you can choose to test them when you have to make a portent check, every round will test it.
Oh, okay.
And it's done by rolling your isolation die and adding the result. And if you used a power like we're obviously, not normal human in just by your very nature, then whatever that score ends up being is the starting point of a portent with a max of 10. And
Oh.
if it's max, then all the chaos and everything that breaks out. So what we have here now as a Boy's Wonder is this kid is about to become not only fascinated with you and maybe the rest of the crew, but as a result is going to just lose his mind and insert himself in ways that are going to be problematic.
Oh boy.
Out of his own curiosity, right?
Oh.
So I'm going to give him his own tab here, just so we don't lose track of him. Well, if Google Slides will cooperate. And so moving forward, Boy Portent, that will also be something we need to pay attention to, and hopefully keep that from escalating. And with that, then everybody has gone this round. We'll go back over to flipping over to everybody being green. It would be the start of the next turn, and that's the point we can start out with when we game next week.
Perfect. Sounds great.
I like it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is another interesting
So
mechanic
cool.
you're putting in here that I'm intrigued by.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it like I said, it's been a repeated question in the playtest of, oh well, how do people perceive us in the world? And it's fine to handle that narratively, but this adds a bit of a mechanical bite to things. So I think it's important to these sort of monster stories.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
for
good
sure.
option.
Yep. So here's my question for Peach, Don. Your characters of those three categories of fear, terror, disgust, or just cognitive dissonance, shutting down, shunning, ignoring, just that sort of thing, or the third one of what Winston has of curiosity, fascination, awe, and wonder. What are the three of those three choices? Which ones do your characters?
Mine would probably be the first one.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm figuring.
There's a lot of opportunities there for fear, disgust, and misunderstanding. So yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And not even intentionally, it just happens.
I think in my case, zombie.
Exactly.
Yeah, not exactly a curiosity and
I think in my
sort of
case,
response usually. I mean, that'd be an interesting story to tell. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely fear and disgust seems to make the most sense.
For me, I don't know because definitely back home, with the reputation I used to have, it was the first one. It was fear, disgust, getting away. But when Carlos goes to the outer world,
Mhm.
it's different, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a plant person. It's very big. So I think I would be between the second one and the third one, depending on the context, mostly of
Yeah.
where we
And
are.
so, in the context of
I
being
would choose if they're more.
sure, I'm
Yeah.
happy to go with either. And knowing the context of, especially this is a one shot,
Yeah.
being not Venezuela, like being in this new islands off the coast of America in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. Yeah, I think considering that the island has a lot of, well, a lot more than common supernatural beings, it would be the
Yeah, I
second
could see
one.
that.
So, kind of shutting down, ignoring, or the curiosity and awe and wonder, which okay,
Yes.
cool, excellent, cool. Well, I have that on record now. It's obviously not in the character keeper, just as I need to overhaul it entirely for the third play test
Yeah.
at the end of the year. But yeah, excellent. Boy, that's going to get interesting fast.
That is. All right. Well, thanks
Excellent.
for joining us, Peach.
Yeah.
We'll have you back next week, obviously. Will, thanks for running for us. You'll also obviously be back next
Yeah.
week.
Yeah, I think so.
I sure hope so. Otherwise, we're gonna have problems.
I know.
Be like, I don't know
I,
what to stream.
I can't wait to see where this goes. This has been a
Yeah.
lot of fun and really interesting on the character creation point, and like the rules do make sense as you get into them. Like, I'm glad we stayed and did these few rolls and did this first scene, because I'm like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yep.
that helped like put two and two together there. It's like, okay, this makes sense. This is
Mhm.
I understand that. All right.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this. This is gonna be great.
All right,
Yeah,
so
this should be fun.
for everybody watching, we'll be back here again 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time next week on Wednesday to finish up and see where this goes.
Super cool.
Also,
So
a casual reminder for folks that don't have it: we do have daylight savings time coming up,
Oh, that's true.
so that
You
will
just had to bring this whole screen down.
so that will actually change the time. So remember that.
Well,
excellent.
yeah,
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Peach, Jeff,
Ooh.
Don, thanks again for letting me hang out and bring a
Oh,
game.
absolutely.
Looking forward to bringing it to a conclusion next week. We'll see where this goes.
Oh yeah.
We'll see you next week, hopefully, everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
Take care. Stay legendary, folks.